You're all set.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Common Council at our Finance Committee meeting. Today is May 12th, 2021. Before we begin, we would like to go over a few guidelines to help us navigate this system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. The moderator for tonight is Clerk Elissa Tenti, and she reserves the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Council members and city staff will control their own mute buttons. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a council member or staff wishes to speak, he, she, or they will raise their hands, and I will call on them, and they will announce themselves stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website. Although we will not have public speaking tonight, you can sign up to speak at our monthly council meetings. Please email Elissa Tenti to sign up by noon the day of the meeting, or you can submit written comment for the record by the same deadline. The email address is emtinti, E-M-T-I-N-T-I, at kingston-ny.gov. You can also drop comments off at the drop box located outside the side door of City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to committee chairs or your ward's representative at any time. Please note that our next Common Council meeting will be Tuesday, June 1st. Clerk Elissa Tenti is the moderator for tonight's meeting. She has the right to lock and pause this meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Last of all, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance myself, Rennie Scott Childress, Chair of Finance, as well as members Tony Davis, Don Tollerman, Steve Shabbat, Michelle Hirsch, other members of the Common Council, including Jeffrey Ventura Morel. We also have city staff here tonight. We've got Daniel Baker, Elissa Tenti, the aforementioned, Lindsay Timbrook, John Toohey, Mayor Noble, Steve Knox. We've got President Andrea Schott of the Common Council, Corporation Counsel Kevin Bryant, as well as visitors Brian Slack, Daniel Cantor, Mike Gilliard, and I hope that does it. If I missed you, I'm sorry. There's a bunch of windows tonight. Thank you for your patience during these difficult times, and on behalf of the Common Council, I wish you and your family good health. I now call this meeting to order at 6:42 p.m. Thank you. As is our recent custom here on the Finance Committee, we will begin with the report from John Toohey about the state of the city's finances. John Toohey, are you ready to go with that?
I am ready, thank you. This afternoon, I emailed out the finance update to everyone. I also, earlier today, I emailed out the annual report. It'll be a communication to the Common Council for the June finance meeting, but everyone should have that in their inbox. I have a memo that explains the results. For 2021 on a year-to-date basis, we're tracking pretty well. The expenses are a little bit above where we were last year. Obviously, at this time last year, we had we're in the midst of the pandemic, and we'd start making some changes. Through 25% of the year, we are at 23.9% of the general fund budget has been expended, so we're slightly below, slightly favorable on expenditures. Not much has changed with sales tax since the last update. The last sales tax check we received was April 19th. There's no news there. We should be getting another check next week. We received, I communicated regarding AIM funding that will be in line with our budget, or actually it'll be over budget. It'll be in line with what we received last year. That is on my financial report. The contingency balance is now $564,000. We used $200,000 last month. And the unassigned fund balance, I have an updated total there. And that's actually is a mistake. It's the unaudited unassigned fund balance is $9,242,518. That amount is 21.4% of the 2021 general fund budget expenditures. On year to date on sales tax, we are currently at 9.56% over where we were in 2020. Keeping in mind in 2020, there's a lot of fluctuations. At this point, 2020, we really hadn't hit the impact of the pandemic. But after that, there were some wild swings. So I'll continue to keep the council updated. But currently, the sales tax looks very favorable. Once again, we're almost 10% above where we were last year at this time. So I think that you'll see some swings in that year over year. But as of right now, we certainly look favorable to budget. And I think we'll continue that way, pending anything extraordinary. Tony,
Great, thank you, Tony Davis.
Hey, John, thanks for the report. And can you just tell us what the contingency balance was at this time last year? You said the contingency and balance is $564,000.
564. Yeah, give me 1 second. I'd have to pull that up. Don't mind my clicking. I'm just I go through a few files just to pull it up. It was at 990,000.
990,000.
990. Yeah. So part of my game plan for next month is to give the council an update on our 2020 results. Our unaudited numbers have been reported to the state. I also want to go through and talk about the fund balance and our policy. Do a brief presentation. I'll be speaking with Rennie a little bit more on that, but I would like to get something to the council regarding that for next month, so we can have a more elaborate discussion on the 2020 results and going forward.
Thank you.
Sure.
Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, John. I can't get into my email for some reason, so I'm not able to see your figures. I'm just curious regarding property taxes and how that's looking for the city.
So far, good. I mean, so far we finished 2020. We were off a little bit with property tax. That was fine. Considering where we thought we could be earlier in the pandemic. 2021, it's still a little early. We haven't finished the accounting for May yet, but from the interim results that I looked at, we were on line with property tax as well, with current property tax.
So would you say that there's from each year it's like about average, or would you say that there's more people behind in their taxes? Or
I would say that I haven't seen an impact of the pandemic on property taxes. We do have a sizable past due property tax, but that existed prior to the pandemic. I haven't seen an exacerbation of that from the pandemic itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments relating to Comptroller Tui's overview? All right, great. Thank you, John. We appreciate that. We appreciate the work you do day in, day out. All right, let's move to our list of new business. We will begin with a budget transfer, CDBG funds relating to after school programs. This is from Lindsay Timbrook. Hello, Lindsay.
Hi.
Tell us what's going on, please.
So we're just doing a budget transfer of the CDBG funds that were approved. We were approved for $40,000 for the computers for the after-school drop-in programs at the Hodge Center and at the Rondout Center. We will be having, I believe, 25 computers at the Rondout Center, 15 at the Hodge Center, to assist with the digital learning, after school activities, and stuff like that. So it's already been approved. HUD already executed their contract, as well as with the city. And once we have the funds, we can move forward with the purchases.
Great. Did you supply a committee report for that?
Yes, we did two separate ones, one for each location.
I'm trying to find them in our agenda packet here. Oh, there we go. All right. So we'll have to do then actually two votes, it looks like. So I'll read the first one, and we'll see if we can get a motion in to discuss. The first one here is transfer $12,074.21 to purchase 15 Dell Optiplex 7520A10 computers for the Everett Hodge Community Center for its drop-in school support program. The funding for equipment and materials and supplies will be reimbursed by CDBG through its CARES Act funding. And we have some details about where the money comes from and goes to. The financial impact here is zero. Do we have a motion to discuss? Steve Shabbat, second. Tony Davis. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, thumbs up, please. All opposed? Good, that's unanimous. The second one here is transfer $16,098.94 to purchase 20 Dell Optiplex 7420A10 computers for the Rondout Neighborhood Center for its drop-in school support program. The funding for equipment and materials and supplies will be reimbursed by CDBG through its CARES Act funding. Do we have a motion to discuss? Steve Shabbat, second. Michelle Hirsch. Any discussion? Michelle Hirsch?
Yes, I just want to say thank you to Lindsay and Parks and Rec for all the hard work that everyone has done through this pandemic and supporting all the kids in Kingston. It's been an unbelievable job to help them with their schoolwork. And I know that it's meant a lot to a lot of people that they had a safe place for their children to go and receive their education and support. So thank you.
Thank you for your support, because our staff worked really, really hard, both locations. They really put everything they had into it with very little notice to pull it together. So I'm really grateful for all the staff. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you for that. So any other discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Lindsay. Great to see you. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
We'll have some fun now.
Have a nice night.
The next item on the list, then, the second thing I have here is the Kingston City Land Bank proposal. Mayor Noble, I believe, will be telling us about this.
Rennie, I'm going to interrupt for 1 minute.
Please do.
My numbering is off, and I just don't want you to miss the transfer of $950,000 from Kevin Corte, which is actually above it. It's just the numbering is off on the agenda.
Well, I see it also as number 7. So are you saying the paperwork is?
Yeah, it's just a little wonky. Sorry about that. I apologize.
Well, if that's okay, May, are you okay with if we go with the ADLN grant first?
Oh yeah, it's fine. Yep.
Okay. Kristen, you want to tell us about this?
Actually, this is Kevin Cortes.
You're right.
Communication.
Sorry.
Is he here?
I think technically, Kristen, I'm not sure he was actually invited because I think the communication actually came from you.
Yeah, that's the communication is from you, and I see though that it's
Oh, okay.
housing.
Okay. Well, I can speak to it. Sorry about that. We were trying to get Kevin to do it, so this is a little bit of we're trying to train new department heads and these sorts of things. So this is a very basic budget transfer. I think at the last finance meeting, we had a request for the council to authorize expending funds from this grant. And now we need to transfer the funds of $950,000 from grant revenue to contracted services. I believe the grant was for $1 million, and 50,000 of that goes towards staff time. And it has already been transferred when the housing department redid their budget. But the other 950,000 needs to be transferred to contracted services for the different projects of the grant. Did anybody have any questions? Or Rennie, you're muted.
My numbering is now off, so so any questions about this?
If you're looking for it on the agenda, it should be pages 5 and 6.
Yeah. So the committee report reads, transfer the remaining funds in the ADLN grant, $950,000 to the contracted services line of the Department of Housing Initiatives budget. So it's coming from grant revenue going to contracted services. So this is ADLN now. All right, do we have a motion to discuss? Tony Davis. Second, Michelle Hirsch. Any discussion, comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Great, thank you for that. We will now move to the Kingston City Land Bank proposal.
Thank you, Chairman Scott Childress. I'm joined today also by our Executive Director of the Kingston City Land Bank and the Board Chair, Daniel Cantor, to potentially answer any specific questions. The basic concept that we want to be able to present to everyone tonight is that back in 2018, the city authorized the sale of properties to the Kingston City Land Bank. There were 36 properties in total. As part of that resolution, after doing a huge effort, the land bank has reviewed extensively every single property and has done extensive title work on every single property to figure out really what was within the mission of the land bank and what was in the the realm of possibilities to be able to help our housing situation here in Kingston. And so after that review, the Kingston City Land Bank sent us a letter. And I know that they had talked to the council about doing this by, I think, the end of June when they met with you last. And so they knew that we were all interested in this topic. And so they worked really hard to be able to prepare this communication. In essence, there are about 12 properties, mostly vacant land, but a few single family properties and a 1-2 family property that really do not fit within the mission of the land bank or have issues that are kind of beyond the capabilities of the land bank at this time that they would like to, not proceed with. And so that will then give the city council and my office the ability to work together to be able to dispose of those properties in different ways and for different purposes other than through the Kingston City Land Bank. And so in my letter to the council, I'm asking that those 12 properties, which are listed in my communication, be able to come back to the city to be able to give my administration time to relook at those properties and to propose how, working with Corporation Counsel's office, how we can dispose of those properties, or if there are any properties that could now be used for city purposes, or and if not, what type of sale or process for sale that we at least recommend. And then the Common Council will obviously have the opportunity to make decisions on how they would like to proceed, with these properties. This, will culminate, in essence, like I said, a multi-year process. I'm happy to report that through the hard work of the Land Bank and our Corporation Counsel's office, we are now just this week and next week closing on 7 of the properties that were on the original Resolution 172, which is a really large kind of a number of single family homes that will be able to now be in the ownership of the Kingston City Land Bank. And it also means that the city of Kingston will be able to receive all of the back taxes owed on those properties, which is beneficial to the city treasury as well, to be able to allow us to make future investments with our budget going forward. And so that's really exciting, because I know that has been in the works now for many months to get all of the title work done. And now we're at a point of, I think, a big milestone for the land bank. And I just want to thank everyone on the board and the leadership that helped to get that done. And there are a few properties that you'll notice in the land bank's request is that there are a few that do need a little bit more time to be able to either clear up some long-standing title issues or to do some more investigation in. And so the land bank has proposed to have the city council give them to the end of the year to be able to see if we can clear up some of those title issues or some of those investigations about whether properties can be saved. It goes into great detail in the communication, so in my letter to all of you, I support all of the land bank's proposals in terms of 1, requesting more time to investigate, 2, to be able to do some more work on title, which we have a grant for through another source of funding that Kevin's housing office is working with, so that we can try to dig into some of these title issues that neither the Corporation Counsel's office or the Kingston City Land Bank could do based on the resources that all of us had. But this new grant will help us be able to really get into the weeds on some of these really complicated title issues related to not being able to find heirs and all kinds of other things. And so with all of that said, I also make a recommendation in my letter, being that we have now, have a really solid plan on what to do with these 36 properties, the 12 that are kind of coming back to us, as well as all of the other single-family homes that the land bank is going to be working on this year, is that there are additional properties that have come to the city since the end of 2018. And so there are about a half a dozen to a dozen additional properties that I believe in going forward that the land bank should have a right of first refusal as our partner organization, who is the only organization committed to redeveloping and single family homes here in Kingston in this way, that we give them the first shot at doing this work and give them a very clear time frame so that there is this back and forth communication between the city and the land bank that's very open and transparent and clear. I think it will really help going forward so that we all have a really much better defined policy and procedure on how we deal with our surplus tax foreclosed properties. And so that's in my letter. Whether that ends up being a finance committee issue or a laws and rules issue, I'm going to leave that up to the council. But for tonight, my main purpose is to be able to have the city be able to accept back those 12 properties that the land bank has determined that they're unable to use right now for their purpose and mission. So that's my overview. And again, I think if there are specific questions, Mike and Daniel can probably dig in a little bit more, but I think that's at least our request for this evening.
Great, thank you. So in the information portion here, any questions for Mayor Steve Noble, Mike Gilliard, or Daniel Cantor, Don Tollerman?
Hi, guys. Thank you. One of these properties, 72 Garden Street, is in my ward, and the neighbor really wants to buy it. And that should be pretty easy. It's a narrow strip of land between two homes and can't be used for any other purpose. And that would seem to be an easy move. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Yeah, and so that's one of the properties that the land bank has identified themselves that they're not able to utilize, and so that's going to come back to the city based on this proposal, and that we would then, propose a plan to all of you on how to dispose of that, and so we would prepare that and come back to you once we've evaluated. We'd probably have to do a survey. Some of those items in order to really be able to, do something like that. But yes, that's one of the ones that the land bank has identified that they themselves as an organization aren't able to utilize at this point in time.
Any other questions or comments? Tony Davis?
Hello, Mayor or Dan, whoever can answer this. So these 12 properties that you want to amend this in previous resolution for the city to take back on, then what happens to those properties again? Can you remind me? The city didn't take
so
control.
In my letter and my thinking here is that I would have basically 2 months. I think I said 60 days, or maybe I said to be able to basically review each of those 12 with the city departments to see if there's any internal city use that we need those properties for, and then work with Corporation Counsel's office to determine under general municipal law what are our avenues of disposing of those, whether we have to have an auction, what type of requirements can we place on the properties that is legal. The city has done a variety of things over the years, but we really want to look at what's currently legal in terms of how we dispose of these properties. And so that basically, I in this letter, I'm giving myself a 2-month window so that this isn't sitting out there forever. So that in the next 60 days, I would come back to all of you with Corp Counsel's office with a plan. This is what we think should happen to 38 Chapel. This is what we think should happen to Catskill Terrace. This is what we believe should happen to 72 Garden. And then be able to have at least our recommendation in the end, property disposition, lays in the hands of the common council. And so, but I at least want to be able to have time to make my recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor.
Other questions or comments? Steve Shabbat?
Yeah, I guess in general, I'm just trying to get a little information for myself. So these properties that will be turned back to us, are they generally speaking just too costly for us to rehab into, you know, for our usual purposes for the land bank? Or are there other reasons, or each one has a different reason?
Daniel Cantor?
Anybody?
I'm happy to speak to this. Hi, everybody. Thanks for your time again. Mike and I have sort of most been in the weeds on these individual specific properties. So the long and short of your answer is basically most of them are vacant land. So in the city of Kingston, land is considered buildable if the lot is over 50 feet wide. None of these properties meet that standard. In fact, some of them are just a very weird like strip of land with some telephone poles, and they run behind like 10 different properties. And it's just like, it wouldn't make sense for us to divert our funding that we're trying to use for affordable home ownership to just sort of purchase this thing that we have no use for. We did this in careful consultation with the Kingston Land Trust to ensure that they didn't have a use for these vacant parcels either. 72 Garden Street, which John brought up specifically, you know, the property, as you can imagine, vacant strip of land between two houses, it's worth very, very little. But because of the way that this was structured in Resolution 172, the back tax amount on that property is roughly $65,000. So that is what the land bank was expected to pay for it. The reason for that is that the former mayor elected to have the home demolished on the city dime. So that 55,000 and change demolition bill got tacked on to the tax bill, which is how these back taxes actually can include unpaid water and various other kind of minor costs generally. But in this case, it's a very large cost. So we have also talked to that owner. We know that he wants the property. It just, again, would be an enormous financial loss for us to buy it just to facilitate that. You know, I can't speak for the board, but if the city of Kingston decides that the best and highest use for the property is disposing to this neighbor who has been taking care of it and really wants it, you know, we are not here to stand in the way of that. With regards to structures that we are asking for a little bit more time on, the reason for that, I promise, is legitimate. It's because the houses are in such poor condition, and I do this all day long as a living, so I know what I'm looking at here. They are truly, like, demolition for us is the worst possible outcome. You're removing a piece of the city's housing stock in some ways sort of permanently. And so we need a little bit of time to get engineers in there and really try to drill down on whether or not these structures can be saved. And then there's a couple of sort of weird ones on the list that we're asking for the city to take back, essentially, even though they were never ours in the first place, that you know, we're just not really equipped to handle. So we are not set up to be landlords. It would not be responsible for us to take on that role at this time. And so for those, I think those are the main reasons for that kind of covers all of them. I'm familiar with all of them. I'm certainly happy to talk about them individually, but if that answers your question, I can be quiet or
Great. Thank you, Daniel. I see Dan Baker wants to jump in here.
Yeah, just a point on parcels similar to Garden Street or Garden Street in and of itself. You know, that is a non-conforming lot, but that lot did have a structure on it. Yeah, it is a little bit, you know, smaller than the 50-foot that is currently required under the code, but that doesn't mean that a lot like that is unusable. It may require a variance, obviously some planning on it, but just to note, there was a structure on that, and I think with the limited housing stock that we do have out there, it just, remind the council that something like that could very well be redeveloped by someone who has the knowledge and interest, and was willing to do that. These properties, I do feel, still have some value to the city. So just don't want to diminish these properties in any way, shape, or form before we really take a look at them and put them out there to see what really is the market or maybe some potential use for them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for either the administration or the representatives of the land bank? Michelle Hirsch.
Hi, I just had a question about the size of the property on North Street, the 197 to 225. The size of that lot. I'm just curious, just like moving forward, because I know this is about housing, but there's also been a lot of talk about North Street and parking and.
Yeah, so that is actually 10 acres that's currently landlocked up on the hill. And so it has a North Street address, but it's actually behind the Kingston Business Park. And so it's 10 fully forested acres that are currently not accessible by road or anywhere. But yes, that's a good point. But the other two North Street properties are much closer. The 46 and 50 both have a house, but currently are both in a floodplain.
Right, yeah, they don't look like to be in good condition. I looked at them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Tony Davis?
And again, even though the mayor was just mentioning those two properties on North Street, and again, and they're in the floodplain, it's going to be very pretty. I mean, they do have value, but it's it might be a little tougher to sell that. And we might be with our engineers or something like that, be able to look at that and see if we can come up with some kind of thing, elevation or something like that we might be able to. We might be able to use that again if we're having a discussion about parking down there. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Great, thank you. So I'm wondering, do we stand to lose any of the original grant money that came to the land bank for the purpose of purchasing these properties? Is there any concern with that? Whoever feels like they can answer the question is fine.
I'll take a stab at it. The short answer is no. We have been in very close contact with our multiple grant writers through this process. And I think they've really understood a couple things. First being that the original grant funds were in the exact amount of the back taxes, which of course did not leave us any $0 and 0 cents for any kind of operating costs or budget. So, there was always the assumption of more grant funds in the time since they have come, but we have gotten the grant funds, the remaining balance, basically reallocated to our rehab costs, additional acquisitions, and operating expenses of the organization. So we have not had any sort of clawback of these funds.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? Then if we're going to consider the resolution would be resolution to amend resolution 172 by removing the below properties from that authorization resolution as per the attached, to remove the 12 properties listed as per the attached. I wonder though, we would need the year for that resolution. Do we have that year handy?
2018.
2018. All right. Do we have a motion to consider? Michelle Hirsch. Second, Tony Davis. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think,
Michelle Hirsch, yes, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to say that there's, quite still a lot of money owed on some of those properties. So I hope that we are able to do something that will benefit the city. Thank you.
Yes, well, we'll look forward to the mayor coming up with some creative suggestions on that order. Yes. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing no discussion, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the resolution? Anyone opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, Mike and Daniel. We appreciate it. Appreciate the work that you're doing. Let's see, Mayor, was there another issue on the agenda that you were involved with that you wanted to move?
If possible, there's actually two that, I think I should probably set up for just to kind of give some more context. And then, and maybe I could just speak briefly about both of them, and then you can actually speak to the department heads in your agenda later on where you may not need me as much. I don't know how, it's up to you, Rennie. I know you've got a very busy agenda tonight, so.
Well, and we don't need to keep you around with if we don't need to. Is everybody okay with the mayor speaking to those later item agendas, and then we'll speak to the department heads when we get there? Okay, good. Yep.
Yeah. So I think the first is related to a transfer request in the clerk's office to be able to have to turn our part-time bilingual clerk position into a full-time bilingual clerk position, and this is really the very beginning of getting City Hall open again from 8:30 to 4:30. Right now we have someone that's working part-time. They're only able to work 3.5 hours a day. And so we really want to be able to get City Hall back open fully. And so in order to do that, we're really, I'm really asking for some additional funds out of contingency to be able to make that happen. And that will also help support all the other departments, because many people come and check in here first before they go to DPW or Parks and Rec. And at least for now, that would still continue. And so that is the first. And I think that in the end, some of those expenses could potentially even be paid for out of this new COVID funds that we're getting from the federal government, because it is specifically related to, opening up for COVID. And so I do believe that there could be a way for us to get reimbursed these costs, in the future. But for right now, we really would like to be able to get the building open. And if we approve it tonight and it goes to the full council in June, we hope that by July 1, we'll be able to have someone trained and in place and ready for the busier time in the summer for us. So that's the first.
Could I ask on that real quick, tangentially related, do you have any word on either when we might be receiving some of those COVID funds, or have we gotten a more specific detailing of how we can use them?
Yes. So actually on Monday, this past week, the Treasury Department put out what they are calling their interim rules. And those rules are, we're still trying to digest what they mean, as is everyone else in the country. And so, but those rules are going to get put in this request for proposals that we're going to put out to be able to help us build our economic recovery plan. But the rules are going to help us understand more fully what is able to be, generated. And I'll have either John or Kristen send you those rules from the federal government. It's only like 4 pages. And so there's probably going to be a lot of interpretation that has to happen with the rules. But with that said, we should see by the end of this month or early next month, half of our allocation, in our bank account. We'll then get the other half sometime in about the same time frame in 2022. And so that's and it will be somewhere between that 17 and 18 million dollars. The numbers, until we actually can draw down, we don't actually know our final allocation yet.
Great. Thank you. Kristen Wilson.
I just also wanted to mention that we, our office also submitted a request for funding from FEMA for COVID relief. We submitted a request last year for $141,000, and Ruth Ann went through all of the steps to submit that request, and it seemed like it's headed towards approval. And we can submit another request to FEMA for COVID relief. So I know that she is starting to prepare the second request for overtime from fire and police departments, but it may also be possible to include this. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to review the eligibility guidelines, but just wanted to throw that out there. I do know that FEMA is very backed up, so I don't know if the money will come very quickly, but there is a request in for it.
Great, thank you for that. And what was the second item?
Yeah, so the second item, and again, was not directly COVID related, but related because of our budget that we put forward. So as we all talked about as part of the 2021 budget, the Building Safety Department took over fire inspections for commercial buildings to be able to create a robust commercial inspection program. Because of all of the growth we've been seeing here in the city, we really needed a program that was much more formalized and really could help address many of the safety concerns that we see often in commercial buildings. And so in order to do that program, we really attempted to try to internalize that program and do it with the staff that we had. And especially when I developed the 2021 budget, we didn't know what the 2021 budget was going to look like. And so we really, we reduced our expenditures almost 10% in almost every department coming into this year. And so I did not propose a full-time position in the building department, but it has become very obvious based on the amount of commercial growth that is happening here in the city that we really do need a full-time fire inspector, to work to do this. And there is revenue that we did believe would be generated from this program. We did put, I believe, some of that revenue in the budget, but we didn't have any expenses related to hiring someone, just because we didn't know how bad COVID was going to be. When we developed the budget back in October and November. And so I'll definitely take, the blame for not being able to forecast that in advance. But Steve is here tonight to ask for that support. And I just wanted to kind of give you the greater context of, why we didn't think about planning this last year is we did. But I didn't include it in the budget because we really wanted to cut back everywhere we could. And I told Steve to try to do the best he can with the staff that he has. And we were not able to implement the program without staff at this point because of everything else and the sheer huge number of permits that we're getting. And so I just wanted to mention that before, the staff talk later on, that's kind of the context of that situation.
Great, thank you. So any questions or comments for the mayor before he checks out?
All right. Well, thanks, Rennie, for giving me the opportunity. I know it's a little not traditional, but I appreciate it.
We try to accommodate. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Yep. Bye.
All right. So then the next item is, in fact, the request here from the clerk to shift to the full-time position. Elissa, is there anything you want to add here?
No, I think that the mayor presented it really well. We really are not able to open the building for more than what we have it right now, unless there's another person. So backtracking, this was a position that had been a part-time position, which became a full-time position. And when we were preparing the 2021 budget and we were in the middle of COVID, we decided to bring it back down to part-time. That person who had been in my office left the position. And so that's the position that our door person, Doris, is in right now. By contract, she can only work 3.5 hours a day. We're open 4 hours a day. So for that last half hour, the mayor's secretary has to go down and sit at the door, and he's been wonderful in volunteering to do that. But it's been rough not having that third person in the office. We're really not able to go to lunch. So no lunches or anything happen in my office until after 2 o'clock. Lunches are actually supposed to be completed by 2, but my office is incredibly busy with foot traffic. So I have one person out and it throws the entire office into a tizzy. So it's been very difficult to not have that person. I've spoken many times to the mayor about if this position was able to go full time, perhaps they can be down at the door, of course, is where they need to be now until we're told they no longer be there. But that their desk could be down there. And there's many things that happen in my office that would be able to take place down there. So it would be more than just checking people in, which is what she's doing right now. So I'm hoping that you agree and allow that transfer to happen and make things much easier in the building.
So we would be increasing the time, but also increasing the duties in a sense of that position, the one that's now part-time.
Right. Well, so Doris was hired for the purpose of being at the door. Mm-hmm. So she's just a temporary right now. So the person who would be hired would be an actual clerk. So they would have, and if we are of course hoping that it is a bilingual clerk, the municipal ID could actually happen downstairs until we no longer need somebody at the door. So right now, because I don't have anyone, we scramble every day to find somebody who can communicate with people who are coming into the building. We're very fortunate. Kristen Wilson speaks Spanish, John Schultai and Arlene downstairs also speak Spanish. They're not always in the building. So I do have, Google Translate, but it doesn't always work that well. So we're doing the best we can, but we really, really need a third person in the office.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Steve Shabbat. Steve Shabbat?
Is that me you're talking to? Okay. I have, I think, 2 questions. Have you discussed with the mayor about using some of the COVID money that's coming in for something like this? I mean, it definitely sounds like it would be considered COVID related.
Well, I spoke to John Toohey about the using of the money, because there was a time not all of the money that was put aside for the part-time clerk was used, because there were several months where the person who was in my office had left, and when we weren't using anybody at the door. So John and I have spoken, and that's the what you see on the transfer on the committee report.
Okay.
I'd say John.
Actually, he did speak to that already, so sorry for that. But my other question is, are we looking at this as a long-term position, or just until, God forbid, COVID going to last, and hopefully it's not going to last forever? Are we looking to keep this position in perpetuity?
Yes.
No matter what the...
Yeah, well, actually,
Okay.
like I said, so when I came on in 2018, the end of 2018, it was a part-time position. And then you all passed local law 10 for the municipal ID. And that's when we had approached the council to make that position full-time. That position, we're having a very difficult time filling the position, because not only does that person need to be bilingual, they need to be computer literate. So it's been difficult because somebody who fits the role has a job or is, looking for a higher paying job. It has not been easy. And so when we had to prepare the budget during COVID and we all needed to present a budget that was 10% lower than what we were working with, that was where my office said, okay, we can get by with a part-time clerk because we had been getting by. That person's position was right in the middle of the day so that they could be there while the three of us would take turns going to lunch. So we were okay at that point doing that. It has since been shown that it's very difficult to not have that person there, but it was made from a part-time to a full-time. So we would like that back as a full-time position.
Great, thank you. Kristen Wilson.
I just want to express some support for this request. Specifically, I do spend some of my time translating for people, which is a little outside of what I normally do. But the translation needs are great. And there, every day there are people who only speak Spanish here in City Hall. And I think that to serve that community, it's an essential service. So I just want to express that support.
Thank you, Kristen. It's not just people coming into City Hall who are looking for the municipal ID. We get people, who want to, actually, we just had a situation where a couple wanted their marriage license, and you really need to be able to communicate with them because there's a lot of information and it's legal information. And if Google Translate is just not good enough when you're dealing with several individuals. People are in every day trying to get birth certificates, and it's very hard to have a conversation with them. We are doing the best we can, but it's not easy. And we've had people who become very emotional and upset that they can't get what they need because we can't communicate with them.
And so the person who's there now would be able to expand to full-time?
No, not the current person. So the person we have right now, she's wonderful. She's a retired woman who took the position knowing that it's only for 6 months because it's COVID related. It's a temporary position, just working the door. Although she's done more than that. We put the phone down there. She takes messages. She checks people coming into every department, not just City Hall. So people coming to other buildings are supposed to come first to get their temperature taken and fill out the documents.
I'm sorry, I meant you have a person who's a Spanish speaker is in your office now, right?
No.
No, oh, okay.
No.
All right, so we'd be looking to hire somebody.
Yeah, so we had, even in the past several months, the job was posted. And we actually had a few people who sent in applications, but then when I called them to talk to them, they really were not looking for part-time. They wanted full-time. It's so hard to find someone part-time who, again, is completely bilingual and very good on the computer, because everything that happens in my office, as you probably know, they're legal documents. So they have to be able to manage that.
Mm-hmm. Tony Davis.
Thank you. With the city of Kingston as we are, and the size we are, and we need a full-time bilingual person there. It is going to be tough, and it's too bad that we had to make cuts last year during COVID, because now, as Elisa stated, it's going to be hard to find someone, but we have to do this sooner than later. And so those qualified candidates that are looking for a full-time position are still out there, and we can't have people who speak, different language or Spanish coming into our buildings or City Hall or calling and not being able to, translate. And we can't rely on people to step out of their position, what they're paid for, and to, put down what they're doing and to, translate. And so it's imperative that we pass this. My other question is, I just want to know what the cost is. I know this is going from part-time to full-time, so I would like to hear from John Toohey and how much this would be, and would this be an entry-level clerk position, at the the first step? And so it is important that we get someone bilingual in City Hall that's going to be there full time, and so we can so City Hall could represent all the people in the city of Kingston and not just some. Thank you.
Great. So some of this is the numbers are on page 17 of the agenda for today. If you don't have that in front of you. Go ahead, John Toohey, if you would. I see the amount, the financial impact would be 26,000, which, given your earlier comment, would be about 5% of our contingency fund.
Yeah, the financial impact is 26,868. That's an estimate depending on what benefit package, obviously, the employee would get. Essentially what you're picking up, Tony, the real cost is you're going from part-time to full-time. So you're doubling the pay. The part-time is generally paid at it's paid at a similar pay scale. What happens, you're just picking up the benefit package. So the total financial impact is, there's a part of the package here, part of the, what you have in your packet is the crosswalk, which shows you from the original budget, adding the bilingual clerk, removing the part-time bilingual clerk, adding some funds in for the temp, and then what the adjusted budgeted. And that's what you get for, it totals out to the 27,000. But once again, if you're looking at kind of like on a prospective basis, like going forward after this year, on a full-time annual basis, what you're looking at is you're adding the cost of a full-time position minus the part-time. You're a little north of $50,000 a year. Once again, depending on what benefit package they would select.
Yes, Tony.
I just one follow-up, and I don't know what's in our other departments. Do we have bilinguals in the fire department? Do we have bilingual speakers in the police department? Do we have bilingual speakers in the DPW? Maybe this is something that they could pull out if this person is in the city clerk's office. And I'm just throwing this out here as a devil's advocate, and that when they come to this issue, they would be able to contact the city clerks. And I'm not sure if they do this now or did this in the past when we had a bilingual to translate for them is information. And if that is the case, then we would be, all these departments could share in this in costs. That's what I'm looking at. If they could utilize this person, if there is no other bilingual speakers in any of those departments that deal and come in contact with the community that not which many are Spanish speaking, or not many, but we have a population of Spanish speaking people now, and I think looking at that those departments could all pitch in, and if this person is going to be utilized in that way, which I think would be a good cross-department initiative and savings, and if that person can be utilized by many departments.
Kristen Wilson.
Not sure what Elisa thinks about that, but I would advocate for somebody who speaks Spanish in every department, because the need is great and the knowledge is specialized. So, somebody who speaks Spanish in the police department is going to be addressing Spanish speakers for different things than what a Spanish speaker in the clerk's department would be addressing. And I do translate for the clerk's office often, and I find that I have to go and figure things out in English first because I don't know all of the procedures for birth certificates, and now I know a little bit more than I ever would have, but I don't know all those procedures, so I have to spend time figuring it out, and then I've got to translate it, and it's somewhat specialized, and you also need it's not only speaking Spanish, you need to know about the procedures and the legal documents, and you also need to know how to speak with people to help them get the information they need. Like, for example, I had someone coming in who was looking for a birth certificate, and he was communicating with somebody who was not in this country, and it was like a lot just to help him figure out what he needed to be able to get his birth certificate. So I don't know that it would work to share the cost among many departments.
What we
That's
might
just
want to
my
do is see if we could get a survey from the mayor's office of who in city government does speak Spanish. We get a better sense of that. That is definitely something we need to keep track of. All right, any other questions for Yulissa or Kristen? Michelle Hirsch?
It's not a question, but I just want to say that I fully support this. It's a really positive investment in our community, in the city. We have a lot of bilingual workers working within our schools, family bilingual workers, teachers. And so this is a large percentage of our population here in the city. And we also need to be doing everything we can to get City Hall back up and running as quickly as possible. So I'm in support. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Yulissa or Kristen? If not, then the resolution would read, oh, sorry, Tony Davis.
Again, I just want, and I just thought of this, and I just would like to make this that, and we might not be at some point, if we're going to pass this, that this has to become a bilingual position, and sooner than later. And again, that's why I see the initiative. That's why I see here in this writing a bilingual and person. And so, I'm not going to I don't want to put a time limit on it. But sooner than later, we have to try to fill this with a bilingual position. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, so the resolution would read, transfer $44,065 to cover the change of part-time bilingual clerk to full-time bilingual clerk in the clerk's office. Financial impact estimated at $26,868. Do we have a motion to discuss? Tony Davis. Second, Michelle Hirsch. Any discussion? Anybody know which bar Steve Shabbat went to? Tony Davis?
I don't know where Steve went, but and so
There he is.
John, and if this is going to be passed, this is going to bring us down to 564 minus what did you say again? John Toohey?
It's minus about $27,000.
27?
Yeah,
Thank you.
a
Sorry,
little less than that, but
26,868.
27. Okay, thank you.
all right. So any discussion? Hearing no discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the resolution? It's unanimous. All right. Anybody opposed? No. All right, great. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you
for that
all so
discussion.
much.
Appreciate how important this is. Yes. All right, the next item on the agenda is from the police department, requesting a transfer of funds from contingency to cover retirement payouts of 6 officers. And this is going to have a financial impact of $157,000. 6 officers retiring from KPD. I don't believe we have anybody from KPD here, but John Toohey, anything you want to say about this?
Thanks, Ronnie. The chief had called me this afternoon to let me know he may not be available to be here. He had another commitment, but these payouts are the statutory amounts that the officers would be entitled to upon separation of service. It's for any accrued leave time that they would have on the books. It is something that I think we're all aware of, that as part of our annual budget, we do include in our contingency estimates some amount for these retirement payouts. They're not included in the department's operating budgets. So this is an expected transfer. I can't say the exact amounts expected, but it's expected that the departments will pull from contingency. The police department the last few years has put money back into the fund balance at the end of each year. So, I would expect with these payouts, they're probably going to have some additional monies available towards the end of the year because you're going to have gaps in backfilling positions. So I would expect that the police department will be replenishing again this year, as long as everything goes as planned. So
you had to add that caveat, didn't you?
I do. I don't want to make an absolute guarantee, but for the last number of years, the police department's always come in under budget. You have several separations of service. It takes time to backfill these positions. That gap in backfilling positions, those are budgetary savings, and that's quite frankly, those types of budgetary savings is what put the city in a better position last year in 2020. We had a lot of gaps throughout all departments. So where we're pulling money out of contingency for these payouts on the back end, we're going to be putting money back for these gaps in backfilling the position.
And John, so what happens if we get really low on contingency? Do we just draw from the fund balance? Do we move money from fund balance into contingency? What's our plan?
I think at that point, before we get there, we could look at, citywide, look at our different expenditure accounts and see what monies we could move around. I wouldn't suggest that we go to fund balance first. We'd look at what accounts we can move around.
Can you remind me, do you remember how much money we had left in contingency last year at the end
I
of
can
the
pull it up.
fiscal? Because I thought it was a fair amount.
Just give me 1 second
But we're getting low. I can't say low, and I'm going to actually be asking John that. And because, after this transfer and in the fire department, we're going to be down to like 350,000. And that's not even the request for a full-time position in the building and safeties.
Last year we finished at 282.
Okay.
We also started at a higher amount. So last year we pulled out $787,000 out of fund balance or out of contingency during the year.
All right. And how much have we pulled out this year? Do you know?
We had pulled out prior to this meeting. What was the number I gave you? Oh, hold on 1 second. Just give me a second. I'm working from different documents here.
I hear you.
We had pulled out just around 290 prior to this meeting.
Oh, okay.
So,
so in that sense, we're kind of in the ballpark of last year.
Yeah, we started out with $215,000 less in contingency.
Okay.
This year.
All right, great. Thank you for that.
Sure.
All right. So any questions relating to this resolution for John Toohey? If not, does somebody want to make a motion to discuss? Steve Shabbat, second, Tony Davis. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor, thumbs up. Unanimous. Thank you very much. The resolution, I'm sorry, reads budget transfer to cover retirement of 6 officers. And we're pulling from retirement accumulation or transferring to retirement accumulation from contingency for a total of $157,000. And the next one is similar. This is from the fire department. Transfer of $33,049 to retirement accumulation to cover the retirement of the deputy chief's final payout. Of course, then that would be the financial impact also. Anything you need to say there, John?
Same situation. Chief Brown and I spoke earlier today. From a budgetary standpoint, it's the same approach. We expect that the department would pull from contingency. If these transfers happen later in the year, they might have a better idea of exactly how much they can pull from within their own budget. But being early May, they really don't. So they're going to pull it all from contingency. But once again, it's a statutory payout of separation of service for any accrued time that they have on the book. So it's really it's really not much choice with these. It's under the contracts. It's time that has to be paid. It's just a matter of funding it. And I agree. Pulling it from contingency is, it's where we budgeted, and it's too early to pull from a department's budget. So,
okay.
And once again, the fire department, as with the police department, has traditionally put money back into the fund balance at the end of the year. So, I support it.
Great. Okay, so the resolution would read, I'm requesting that the total of $31,049.06 be transferred from contingency to retirement accumulation to pay out a deputy chief who retired on February 26, 2021. Do we have a motion? Michelle Hirsch. Second, Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call for the vote. All in favor? Unanimous. All right, thank you for that. The next item concerns wayfinding signage. This is a communication from Don Tollerman. And I believe Brian Slack is here on that issue as well. So Don, do you want to give us a background here?
Hi, everyone. This is Don. So the city of Kingston, I think everyone agrees, is a difficult city to figure out if you're a first-time visitor or an occasional visitor. And, the fact that we have 3 business districts for one, and makes it hard for everybody to know how to get where they're going if they haven't lived here for a long time. And so, recognizing this, the county sponsored a review of our existing wayfinding signage and proposed that we hire a consultant to help us improve it. And so the county did that, identified a vendor, and the vendor performed this work. Brian Slack from Ulster County Transportation is going to sort of take us through what was accomplished, what was done. And Kristen was also very involved. But the purpose for this, for them being here tonight, is this was a monumental piece of work that was completed by the vendor merge. I was on the advisory committee, the technical advisory committee. So I was very involved in working with merge and the committee, and making decisions on what they should do. So this company merge did an enormous amount of work in identifying every single possible place where signage would help someone navigate, help someone find the waterfront, help them find the Senate House, the Fire Museum, and dozens of other places. So they not only did that, they also did a full design of the signage, and they also provided rough estimates for making it happen. So this was, and Chris and Brian, you can tell us what the numbers were, how much the county paid for this to be conducted. And they Merge finished this with a very impressive report of their findings and their suggestions. And so since there is some federal money that will be coming in, as we all know, I think this is a great candidate for funding from that. But the purpose of this meeting tonight isn't to talk about that. It's really just to educate the Finance Committee about what actually went down, what Merge delivered to the city, thanks to the county. And I just want to educate the council so that in the coming months, as we review our options for allocating the federal dollars, I think this should be way up on the list. So with that, Brian, do you have a presentation you want to?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Councilman Tellerman, and thank you, Chairman, members of the committee, and distinguished guests. I would like to have permission to share my screen. And hopefully, while that those machinations are going through, that was an excellent description and introduction to it's called the Connecting Kingston Wayfinding Project that we completed in, that was 2019. I'm going to bring that up now. So I have a collection of slides here. Let me just change the view to full screen that I'm going to run through. I want to say a few words about Merge, and I can say a few words about the funding source. This project was funded by the Ulster County Transportation Council using our Federal Highway Administration planning grants, which we receive every year. I believe the total project cost was roughly $65,000. And I think, as you'll see through this presentation, that it was definitely we received our fair share of work for that investment. And the project was submitted to us, the request was submitted to us by the City of Kingston Grants Department. Merge has done planning. I want to give them due credit because they have been doing wayfinding throughout North America for some time in cities and villages and towns, big and small, urban and rural. Just to name some of the areas that they've done work: Annapolis, Maryland; Asheville, North Carolina; Augusta, Georgia; Savannah, Georgia; New Orleans, Louisiana; Portsmouth, New Hampshire; Austin, Texas, many more. Major historical urban areas with a lot of different assets, and also now Kingston. And they also complete a wayfinding study for Ellenville and Wawarsing as well. Probably the biggest mistake we could make when we talk about wayfinding is to just think, oh, this is about signs. Wayfinding is much more than signs. We have our fair share of signs in Kingston, as the images depict here. And we did, as Don explained, had a full inventory of all existing signage was conducted by the consultants as part of this effort. But what is wayfinding? Wayfinding is it's a system. It's not just signs, it's a system that's used to guide, as Don explained, it's used to guide people through geographic areas and really intended to enhance their depth of knowledge and understanding of that space and to have a better experience in that space. It's particularly important in dense urban environments. And as those environments become more complicated, as Kingston can be to visitors, people need those visual cues to make sure that they feel comfortable and welcome and relaxed and safe and secure, to let them know and remind them that they belong in the space. And a wayfinding system can help enhance that feeling and that sense of place for visitors and for members of the community. So this slide begins to illustrate how a wayfinding system works with various components. including not just signage, but also the information that goes into the placement, location, and type of sign, as well as some of that other supportive wayfinding technology that can work behind the scenes. All of that information is combined into a hierarchy that is based on a geographic scale and intended for different types of users as they travel through a city. And as I think we all know, we can only absorb so much information from a road sign as we are traveling at a high rate of speed in an automobile, as opposed to information that you're going to absorb on an interpretive panel that might be at a scenic vista or at a waterfront area through a kiosk or a map. So this hierarchy directly corresponds to the type of sign, the shape of the sign, the size of the lettering, and the placement, and obviously the scale of the sign. So that hierarchy directly corresponds to the sign type. And this is why really we need a signage and wayfinding professional firm of designers to help us navigate this really complicated terrain of choosing the right sign for the right place. And that's what Merge did. And this again is another illustration to help us understand how the hierarchy of signage would work within the city of Kingston. There's gateway signage as you enter a neighborhood, and all the way down to interpretive and kiosk type signage once you reach your specific destination in a neighborhood or sub area within the city. And I'll have examples of how these signs actually look and work. So when we wrote the scope of work, we said, you know, Kingston is unique. All places are unique, but I'd like to think Kingston is even more unique than other places, in that we know, you know, there are three distinct neighborhoods that make up our city: historic uptown, the Stockade district, the waterfront or downtown, and then all that is connected by our midtown and the various roadways that bind those two different neighborhoods together. And there's smaller neighborhoods interspersed in between. But we wanted to make sure that we not only had a cohesive signage system for the entire city, but that each of these distinct neighborhoods had their own cues or signs that would let them know that you're someplace different than uptown, midtown, waterfront. These are all unique neighborhoods. And so this is just an example of how our designers sought to accomplish that. The signage system is generally the same throughout the city as proposed in the concept plan, but there are subtle cues for each neighborhood and the design and the shape and the color of the sign, and yet so they're unique, and yet they'll still be cohesive and work together. So I'm just going to run through how the design team worked. They were great to work with, and they spent many days in the city, going all over the place and really picking up on those unique architectural elements that make Kingston unique and important, and bringing them into the design process. And we did have 2 public meetings and as well as surveys to solicit public input on what these signs might look like. So they drew from those architectural elements as they began to draft these sign formats. And they went through at least 3 iterations as we began to wind down. You know, this slide begins to show the front and the back of what the rear of a sign might look like. Very attractive, I think. And the colors, they took the colors directly from the local patina of each neighborhood, or tried to make them if not historically accurate, at least respectful of the architecture and the neighborhood. And you can see some of the design elements that they actually are able to incorporate into the brackets of the signs. And here's some more elements that are brought into the final design. So this slide 12 begins to show the final proposed design of what the signs would look like if they were crafted and installed in the city. You can see at the top, each sign would have its own unique color. The shape is generally the same, but then there are all these other subtle differences, like the finial on the top draws from some character that they found within each individual neighborhood. And here's some more examples. Again, trying to use native materials like brick and bluestone, which are found throughout the city and obviously very important to our city's history, manufacturing, and cultural history. Those were incorporated as well. And these are some examples of gateway signs to let visitors and residents know that they're now sort of transitioning from one neighborhood to the next and entering a different neighborhood with these interesting gateway designs. And again, these are the rear brackets. I believe the left is Midtown, the gear to evoke the manufacturing history and legacy of a lot of the buildings in Midtown, the waterfront showing the Word Street Bridge, and in Uptown, I believe that's a window from the county courthouse. So to accompany this, there's the design aspect of coming up with an attractive sign that will both function well as work well for wayfinding. There's the information that goes into the signs, and that is really where the details were involved. And this map shows the entire city, and where I actually don't believe every single sign is depicted in this map. We have over 165 individual elements to the signage plan. So that would be kiosks and maps, all the way up gateway signs, and then your directional signage. And so this shows explicitly the location down to the pole. So we're really talking to the inch on our streets of where these signs would be located, where and how they would be mounted, and in what direction they would face. And then accompanying those sign locations is the information that would go on them, the messaging. So that is a very quick overview, and I will show you, hopefully I can show you the website as well. All the design documents, including the fabrication specifications, were provided to us by the consultants, Merge. And we do also have draft budget information for implementation for the fabrication of these signs. The consultants are not sign fabricators. They're strictly designers, but they know a lot about fabrication, and they can, I think they would probably assist us or assist the city if the time ever came where you're ready to implement. So the thing about a signage wayfinding system is that you can't easily just pick and choose individual elements. You really have to go all in to a certain extent if you're going to have a successful and functional wayfinding system. However, there are opportunities to phase implementation, and our consultants provided us with potentially 3 phases for implementing. The total phase, first phase, total cost of phase 1 implementation is shown at the bottom of roughly $634,650. This is an estimate using 2019 dollars. We know inflation continues to be a factor. That will be a factor going forward, I think. And so the initial phase would be the most expensive because you really have to establish that skeleton framework throughout your city on your main thoroughfares. And then you can work your way out into the other neighborhoods. And there's a phase 2 for kiosks, and finally a phase 3 for the big gateway signs. So the total estimated project cost was $933,000. excuse me. So that is a very brief presentation. I think most members of the council have actually saw the original presentation when we presented it to the public. And I will stop my screen share at this point. If you go to the Ulster County Transportation Council website under completed projects, all the design documents are available on the project website as well. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think I covered everything that I did want to cover as quickly as I could.
Michelle Hirsch.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. That was interesting. I hadn't seen the one that you had mentioned, but I had a question. Now that we have those large green and white DOT signs gone, right? When you enter Kingston from 587, those horrendous
overhead signs, right?
Yeah, hopefully people are less confused. Those were really confusing. But do we know if DOT is bringing in new signage at all with the changes with the roundabout? Is just
I'll defer to Kristen. I know she's the best person for that.
So also just maybe this is a good opportunity to mention there's two types of signage. So what Ryan was covering is wayfinding signage. And there's also signage that's MUTCD signage, which is Manual of Traffic Control Devices, if I got that right, Brian. And that signage is your speed limit signs and bicycle and lane signs, all those other kinds of signs. And so in the roundabout, the DOT will be installing all of those sorts of signs, the traffic control devices. I do not believe they are installing wayfinding. We worked with them when we did this wayfinding plan. In fact, if you look in the wayfinding plan, there is a gateway sign that was designed to put on top of, there's a fieldstone wall that they're building in the roundabout, and we worked with Merge to design something to put on top of that fieldstone wall, which is basically just says Kingston. So I don't recall. I'd have to go back and look at the construction documents, but I do not believe that they will have major wayfinding signage.
Well, it's good to have those large green and white signs gone. So hopefully they don't come back. So, okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Tony Davis?
Yes, I had to step out of the room for it. So all the signage that we have here in Kingston now, all over the place, that is, I missed some of the presentation. Is some of that signage, many of that signage going to be eliminated? Or
That
is
is
it
part
going
of
to be a new fancy signage where these old signages were?
Everything would come down in terms of the existing wayfinding signs. And there is a wayfinding system, the blue and white system that's in place. And we would suggest taking essentially all signage down. There is quite a bit of sign clutter depending on what neighborhood you're in. There's more in some neighborhoods than others. But we would start fresh.
And I seen in your beginning presentation, it had like park signs. I don't understand why that would have to be changed. That indicates the various parks that we have here.
Yeah, it's a concept plan. And I say this with all of our projects that we do. We're trying to provide as comprehensive of a set of recommendations for the municipality to follow. I think that as I said at the end, there are opportunities for phasing the project in, and you may not have to go all in at once. I think ideally it would work best if the city did, but I understand there are serious logistical and financial hurdles to doing that. And there are some nice signs in the city. Quite a few. There's one at the waterfront that is not that old, that is very attractive. And I wouldn't suggest taking that down necessarily. So how the city approaches the project is is definitely malleable and flexible, I think. But the consultants would recommend that the signage system, again, for the signs to work cohesively, that they all be put up throughout the city as recommended.
I think also, I mean, one of the things I learned from the consultants was that the signage clutter can actually confuse people a lot more. So I think, for example, down when I drive, my daughter asked me the other day when I was driving from my house down on McEntee Street, I think there's a sign for the Senate House there. And my daughter was like, "What's the Senate House?" And like, it's weird. Like, why is it down on McEntee Street? You know, like it doesn't really direct me to the Senate House. It's so those kinds of things are just all over the city. And so this signage plan is very systematic, and it provides consistency in design across the city. And I think it creates a sense of continuity between, especially between, you know, uptown, midtown, and the waterfront. And I think it could help to sort of create a collective sense of community, that we're all one city, we're all one community. And so I think there are a lot of benefits, but there are some signs that, you know, people may have a hard time letting go of. So, you know, those are things that we could work through if we ever are able to get this to construction.
There are a couple signs like the New York State traveling through history signs, as well as some other state signs that were erected by the state that would have to be discussed with this New York State DOT residency before some of those are taken down. There is no maintenance schedule for most of those signs. It was a one-shot deal out of the governor's office, as I recall. So eventually those signs will need to be replaced anyway, but that would add to the clutter as well. So there are some other questions that would need to be addressed regarding some of those existing state signs.
Kristen, any chance of grants of any sort to pay for some of this?
Yeah, I mean, the consultant did have a list of recommendations for potential funding sources at the end. And I think, you know, we were very enthusiastic when the study was completed. It was completed in 2019, and then we moved into COVID. And, you know, also, and I've spoke with Dawn about this, you know, my office is at extremely maximum capacity right now to be able to manage or take on any new projects, as well as the engineering office. So I think it's both, we can look for new funding. We just have to make sure that we can manage it if we get it.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, then since there's no vote requested at this point, we can say thank you. Am I right? Any closing remarks, Don, Brian, Kristen?
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. If you ever have any questions regarding this project or the Transportation Council, please reach out to me or Dennis.
They tend to occur to us at 4 a.m, so.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Kristen. Rennie, I was hoping that, I don't know if it's possible to ask Brian to come back for the Laws and Rules Committee, but it's just, I think that every member of the council really needs to get a sense for what this is about. So we can talk about that later.
Well, you would want to talk about that with Andrea Schott as the president,
Right.
see if there's another presentation possible on different committee.
Okay.
But I like it. I think it's amazing too when you see that first slide of how many different signs there are, and I think that fits in with what Kristen was saying. After a while, there's so many different signs, you kind of just stop looking. There's nothing that draws your eye because you start to say it's just too much noise. So I'm sorry, Kristen, you want to say something else?
I just wanted to mention that I put the link to the study and the plan and all of the information in the chat box.
Great.
Kristen, I have a question. You mentioned for the roundabout that is that Kingston sign Is there money for that? One sign for the entryway off the roundabout?
I do not believe it is in the DOT construction plans, so the city would have to identify the funding to be able to do that sign.
So I think maybe we should look at that as a one-off, because we're, how much time, effort, and money is being spent on that roundabout. We should have a gateway sign there at least, Brian, do you know if that, how we would get a quote on that? Is that in the merged documents?
I'll have to dig in, Don, and I can get back to you on that.
I think it's one of the ones that was in phase 3.
Right, we were gonna do the gateway signs later. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to dig into it too, but I believe that was on phase 3.
Well, I would propose, I would make a proposal to the council that, that we look for funding to do that as a final, the cherry on the top of that big project. So Brian, yeah, if you could let me know what you find on that, that would be great.
I certainly will.
One of the things that the consultant did mention, because I thought, well, can we just kind of work on this little by little? That was my first question. And he did say that when you do this, because we have to put this out for competitive bid, it's a construction project. If you do it, in sort of that popcorn style or little by little, then you can get different sign makers, and it can really sort of affect the quality. And so it's better to do it in bigger chunks of, do a series of signs at once, in the phases that he suggested, rather than just do one sign here and there.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Where's Randy?
Sorry, Tony Davis.
I mean, I think we need to wait on this. I just cannot see how the DOT, how we're not going to have any signage at the top of that intersection to say "Welcome to Kingston" or to indicate that small famous throughway intersection. It's got to be some kind of signage that they put for 587 or whatever the number it is. So I cannot believe that DOT is going to do this roundabout and it's not going to be any signage saying to the New York State Thruway or 587.
So I want to clarify or answer that. That would be included in the the MUTCD signage. So there will be basic signage to different routes, like to I-587, Route 32. That will be in the roundabout signage. But before, when we had those big ugly green signs, it said like Kingston, or I don't remember exactly what they said. There won't be that.
So
but
how
will be very basic.
Where would this signage be? Just stand erected on the side of the road?
Yeah, it'll be throughout the roundabout. There's a whole, and if you're really interested, there's a whole signage plan for the roundabout. There's a lot of signs that will be there, but they're not wayfinding signs. It's a little confusing. They're traffic signs, and it includes route numbers, but not places. Like it won't direct you to the Senate House or to Uptown. It'll direct you to Route 32 and to I-587, that sort of thing.
So it's not going to signage. It's not going to be anything, or that's going to be still off the thruway saying "Welcome to Kingston" when you get off that thruway or roundabout. There's not going to be anything saying Kingston.
Not the thruway at the roundabout, not the roundabout at the thruway entrance. We're talking about the new roundabout at Albany Broadway.
All right.
The thruway roundabout will still be the same. It will be, we're talking about the new roundabout at Albany and Broadway. There will not be "Welcome to Kingston" there. I'd have to really check the documents, but I'm pretty sure that it won't.
All right, thank you.
Great. All right, we can move on to the next item. We've already dealt with the two items Lindsay requested, so we're moving now to the request from Corporation Counsel for a transfer to correct shortages in the consultants line. Kevin Bryant, you want to give us an idea what's happening here? Welcome,
Well,
sir.
good evening, everyone. Kevin Bryant here. We had known that we were going to have shortages with respect to our consultant line. And we are finishing off a couple of outstanding issues relative to Aslan. But more importantly, we have major litigation with the Washington Avenue Tunnel. And it's pretty intense. It's going to be heavily relied on experts, and we anticipated that this would be an expensive litigation due to the complexity.
And we would be transferring $90,000 from contingency.
I believe it would be 85. 5 would come from our existing budget, and I believe 85,000 would come from contingency.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. I see that on one of the attached documents. All right. Any questions for Kevin? Any questions? If there are no questions, well, Don Tollerman.
Hi, Kevin. The plaintiffs are the people who live right there where the whole thing happened. Is that right?
No, we are the plaintiffs.
Sorry.
We're bringing the actions to recover damages that have occurred.
Oh,
If you'd like to go into an attorney-client session, I can update you. But that's as far as any facts that I'm willing to discuss currently.
understood. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tony Davis.
On this committee report, there doesn't state the amount financial impact, so we got to make sure that's on there.
Yep.
So it's another money out of contingency of $85,000.
Yes.
All right. So that's now bringing it down to 264.
All right. Any other questions for Kevin Bryant? All right. If not, then the committee report would read request transfer to the 2021 Corporation Council budget to correct shortages in the consultants line from contingency estimated financial impact $85,000. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion to consider, Steve Shabbat. Second. Don Tollerman. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Unanimous. All right. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate all that you're doing there. I know that that's tough work going into court and dealing with all this.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Steve Knox, are you still awake? Are you with us? All right. This is the second item that the mayor had mentioned. Steve is looking for a full-time inspector in building safety regarding fire safety. So can you tell us more about it, Steve?
Sure. As you all know, the beginning of this year, the responsibility to conduct fire inspections was moved from the fire department to building safety. Certainly understood the large undertaking that we're accepting. But my conversation certainly with the mayor was that as long as we had the staffing to do it properly, that we'd be more than glad to take the responsibility on. In my 2021 budget request, I asked for a full-time inspector. We believe there's a little over 800 commercial properties in the city. All need inspections, some yearly, some every 2 years. And a lot of those properties will need multiple inspections to bring them into compliance. Unfortunately, because of the uncertainty, the economic uncertainty entering the year, the mayor pulled the funding for a full-time position out. Instead, with the shared service model that he spoke about, and unfortunately, that hasn't quite worked out the way that we believe, and that's why we're back here revisiting and trying to get a full-timer. These inspections aren't they're mandated by Department of State. They have to be conducted every year, or have to be conducted according to the codes. And unfortunately, we haven't in the past. It hasn't quite been done the way that it needs to be done for, I guess, a number of reasons. So I'm here requesting the funds for that full-time position.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Steve Knox? Michelle Hirsch?
Yeah, so are we taking in revenue at this point so far this year?
We are not taking in revenue because the current staff, my current staff doesn't have the capacity to do that, to do.
I remember this during the whole budget, and I think we even voted on a vehicle for this staff member.
Well, you guys actually pulled the vehicle for that staff member, but because one of our other vehicles is we were informed by DBW that the other vehicle wouldn't be making it through the rest of the year. We had to put the vehicle back in, but that's being used by, will be used by our plumbing inspector.
I do remember that you were requesting a full-time person because you were only, if I remember correctly, you were even saying you would probably, with the part-time, would only get to about 65% of the work.
That's correct. Yeah.
Is that it, Michelle?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Tony Davis.
So Steve, and you're getting about 65% of this, what the building safety person needs in regard to these inspections, or 65% overall in the building safety department?
Well, I think what Michelle's referring to was in a different conversation. We asked I was asked if I didn't get the full-time person, how would that affect basically how many inspections we would do, and the bottom line was how it would affect revenue. And I said we would probably get to maybe about 65% of the inspections and not the complete amount of revenue.
And so you've done about that much so far this year? No.
We've done no, I mean, there's only been 1 or 2 commercial property inspections done because of the shared service. Basically, we were trying to take an existing city employee and use them in their current role in community development and have them split some time in building safety. But her responsibilities there required more time to complete her tasks there. So we didn't get as much time as we even thought. And then in retrospect, I think it was unfair kind of to think that, or to believe that somebody was going to be able to do both jobs and stuff. Having served in the same role in community development as a housing inspector, I know what's required to maintain and keep up with all the HUD regulations to do that, to perform that job. And then to ask that same person to learn the New York State Fire Code, which is probably the most difficult code because of all the types of commercial properties and all the different uses for commercial properties, was probably a task that is a little too much for most people.
All right, thank you.
Other questions for
I
Steve?
can add to Rennie that since the mayor and I reviewed kind of where we stood with developing this program, and we understood that the current model that wasn't going to work out. We had civil service post the job position as a part-time position. It's gone out 3 times. We aren't able to garner any interest in it as a part-time position. So we not only need a full-timer to do the job, but I think it's the only way we're going to get someone in to do that work.
Sounds like that's kind of the general environment from what I understand about trying to hire folks around the country.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. And this in particular, though, I think I know there's at least 3 other local municipalities that are also looking for part-time fire inspectors, and none of us have been able to garner much interest.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Other questions for Steve Knox? If there are no other questions, then the committee would, Tony Davis?
So Steve, you're saying with this person being full-time, this one person is going to be able to complete all these building and commercial inspections?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a new program. I mean, we're certainly hoping that they're going to be able to do, a good portion of these inspections and stuff. I mean, I can't guarantee that, but I think they'll be able to do a good portion of it. It's certainly going to be a heck of a lot more of the inspections being done than were being done previously. We prior to moving over, I think maybe only 50 or 60 were getting done per year, which certainly presents some issues and stuff for the city itself. And so I definitely think this full-timer is going to be able to do hundreds of inspections.
Now, who would this person be? Is this somebody already in staff?
It is not someone in staff that we're looking to bring someone in.
So this person would have to have those qualifications already, the fire codes and all that.
We're looking for someone that has either their code certifications already, possibly a former firefighter, or a contractor that has good construction experience, that we could get the code classes and get them up and running quickly and stuff. A combination of all 3 would be ideal, but certainly they have to have at least one of those skill sets.
All right.
Steve Dabbitt, then Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you. Steve, thanks for being here. Just, I don't want this to be a long discussion, but if you can just give us like I guess what I'm looking for are the consequences to the community or a commercial property for our failure to do a fire inspection. Could it cost them the opening of a business or loss of their own insurance? What's besides us losing revenue on it, what could happen out there, due to our failure to not get fire inspections done?
Well, one, it's not really an option for us to not do them. These are mandated by New York State law. We have to do these inspections. And what could happen? We certainly put the city residents at risk if we're not in these buildings doing inspections and making sure that businesses have the appropriate fire protections in place, or there's not overcrowding. I certainly think we may open up some liability to the city itself if an incident happened and we aren't conducting the inspections that were mandated to conduct by the state.
Yeah, I guess that's the kind of answer I'm looking for. Okay, thanks.
Great. Michelle Hirsch?
Hi, again, Steve. So I had down back when we were going through the budget that this would be a step one position. So now would that still be the same, but it's full time?
It would be a step one position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just to Michelle, I believe initially though, I was asking for a building inspector position, which we in my conversation with the mayor, we are changing to a fire inspector. A building inspector is able to do fire inspections, but because we're looking for someone to come in with some experience and stuff so that they can hit the ground running a little bit more quickly, we changed the title to fire inspector, so it's a grade 17 instead of a grade 15 title.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, then the committee report reads, please consider this transfer request to fund a full-time fire inspector position to conduct commercial property fire inspections for building safety, money from contingency to various slots in the building safety department budget. Estimated financial impact, $54,451. Do we have a motion to consider? Don Tollerman. Second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Michelle Hirsch?
Yeah, I just want to say that, yes, obviously this is an extremely important position, and, Steve wanted a full-time person. And I know that we had to cut back on our budgets and not fund everything as much as we could because of COVID. But I just think that if Steve needs staff, that he needs to get what he needs at the time we create our budgets. So
Great.
support this, but it's not, it just doesn't look good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is an element of the difficulties of coming out of the COVID world. Other comments? Other discussion here? Hearing no discussion, then I'll
I
call.
just have one
sorry.
more question. Are they going to need a
Sure do.
vehicle now? I mean, we originally, the capital plan had a vehicle going for this position. And now you're saying that the plumbing inspector has that vehicle. So are they going to need a vehicle as well?
Well, we're going to be looking to see if we have anything that police or any other department is not using, and trying to pull that over for right now.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing no more discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of this resolution? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Steve. Sorry to
Thank
keep
you.
you out late.
No, good night, everyone.
All right. The last item of new business is the mid-year transfer requested by John Toohey. No financial impact. John, anything you want to say about this?
I'll just go along with what you said. There's actually, Rennie, there's two items. There's two items in the packet, although there's only one item on the agenda. But the first item, yeah, it's a $2,000 transfer that has no financial impact. Just trying to stay ahead of my budget and just move money around as we need it. But we're just moving monies between different accounts. There's no draw from contingency on this. It's just moving it between my different accounts.
Okay, great. So on the first one, we're talking about interdepartmental transfer totaling $2,000. Do we have a motion to consider, or rather the report reads, respectfully request approval of interdepartmental 2021 budgetary transfers totaling $2,000 as attached. There is no overall budgetary impact from these transfers. Do we have a motion to consider? Steve Shabbat. Second by Michelle Hirsch. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? It's unanimous. The second one, committee report reads, establish the following funds as committed in the general fund with approximate balances as of 12/31/20. Memorial funds, $1,000 and change. Gun buyback, $5,000. Forsyth Nature Center, $1,876.19. Parks and Recreation, $24,411.97. Police Drug Dare Programs, $13,367.58. Cornell Park, $1,709.02. Estimated financial impact is 0. Do we have a motion to consider? Michelle Hirsch. Second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Good. Unanimous. No one opposed. Thank you very much. All right. Now we're moving to old business. The first item of old business concerns hiring a consultant to develop a traffic safety campaign. John Toohey.
Rennie, just real quick, there were two committee reports attached to that letter.
Yeah, we did both.
No, did you do both regarding those fiduciary funds? You did the one that has established the following funds in the general fund. Did you also do the $5,000 item?
We did 2,000.
There was a 2,000.
There's a whole series. Oh, I see what you're saying. There's a third one there, committed fund balance.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read that one. Please consider following budgetary transfer to utilize committed gun buyback funds for KPD. 2, police miscellaneous, $5,000 from fund balance. It was already committed for this purpose, $5,000. So the financial impact is $5,000 committed from the fund balance. So in that sense, the money was already scheduled for this, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a motion to consider? Steve Shabbat. Second. Don Tollerman. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Tony, up, good, okay, thank you. That's unanimous. All right. So now we move to the issue of the traffic signs. This was sent back from Common Council with the concern of the amount of money to be spent, fear that this $35,000 was the floor, and that we were not clear what this would ultimately mean for total costs. And there was a question of whether or not we could get an RFP produced that would give us an actual estimate or actual cost. Let's see. Kristen, do you want to go ahead and speak to that? Or is there anybody on the council who wants to further develop what the issue was? Go ahead, Kristen.
I did prepare a PowerPoint or an update to the original PowerPoint that I had presented. So I can share that and hopefully answer some of the questions that were raised at the last Finance Committee meeting and also at the council meetings, or, well, I watched the council meeting. I didn't watch the caucus. So, or maybe I watched caucus and didn't watch council, but I did prepare a PowerPoint that addresses some of the questions, but also if people want to clarify more what their concerns are, I'd love to hear those too.
Okay. Let's get a sense from the other members of the council. Would you like to get more information in the presentation that Kristen has developed, or go straight into questions?
Well, if there's more information, yes.
Okay, more information. Is everybody good with that? I'm going to say that's a yes then. So show us what you got, Kristen.
Okay. Would I be able to share my screen?
Alyssa, can you make that happen?
Kristen, I made you a co-host.
Okay, looks like I can.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully, are you all seeing a blue screen that says updated request?
Yes.
Okay, great. This was originally a PowerPoint that I gave in April at the Finance Committee meeting. So I did update this to include some more information. So I just need it to advance. How can I get this to advance? Did that advance? Yes, okay. So I just wanted to answer some of the questions like about why should we do traffic safety education? And so just an analogy would be if we change City Hall hours, we would expect that we would put out some public notice about that. And likewise, we are changing the main thoroughfare and also the main entrance, the roundabout that we were just talking about earlier with regards to the wayfinding plan to Kingston. And so we would expect that there would be some public notice, and there is some public notice that is included in the construction contract, which is the new traffic pattern signs and the construction ahead signs that we see when we're driving on the road. But that is really just normally what's included in a design and construction contract. As we saw evidence by when DOT came to work in our community, there's really nothing that we do or is typically done beyond that when new construction projects happen in a community. And that's not just in Kingston, but across the state. It's really just street signage that is often done. However, so when working on Safe Routes to School projects and Complete Streets projects in the past, there are some principles for how to create safer streets, and they call it the 5 E's for complete or safer streets. And all these things are ideally done by a city or by a municipality to create a safer street environment. And those are engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation. And for our newer street projects that are being constructed right now, we have done engineering and evaluation in the sense that we have engineered new designs, and we've done some evaluation on obviously safety, safety statistics, and what would be the best design to increase safety on our roads. So as I mentioned earlier, that more comprehensive education is not, such as traffic safety campaigns or more comprehensive outreach is not typically done through design and construction projects. And so, with this, we're looking to go above and beyond what is normally done to help the community adapt well to this new infrastructure. I know there was also a question at the last Finance Committee about, how will we know that this traffic safety campaign will work? So I did dig out, and with some help from colleagues, did dig out a little bit of research about, traffic safety campaigns actually work? And there is research, and I can share some of these links with folks if you're interested in getting into those details. That traffic safety campaigns and road safety campaigns can change perceptions and reduce crashes. The specific report from the Traffic Injury Research Foundation does note that it is really important that the way that the campaign is executed matters. So if we do a poor traffic safety campaign, it may not change perceptions or reduce traffic. If we do a higher quality and a well-executed traffic safety campaign, then we may have a better chance at reducing crashes. And just also to note, in our own National Highway Safety Traffic Safety Administration Guide for state highway safety offices, they list communications and outreach as an effective science-based countermeasure for nearly all traffic safety problems. So, this kind of education is something that is regularly done. I think all of us are familiar with it. Any of the ads that you've seen about drunk driving or not using your cell phone, all of that is in this genre or in this, effort of traffic safety education that is done by lots of different organizations across the nation and the state. I wanted to just reiterate that, why would we be proposing this now? And why didn't we propose this earlier, with the Broadway Streetscape project? And the reason we're proposing it now is that the community and council members have requested that the city communicate better about our traffic safety issues to prevent crashes. And this is what our staff, I worked with lots of different departments, including health and wellness and engineering, to develop, what would be a solution to this concern that the community has expressed. And I also want to reiterate, because I think it did come up in one of the council meetings, that the projects that are being designed or the projects that are under construction that have been designed they meet New York State DOT standards for safety. They're designed to improve traffic flow and reduce crashes. They're not less safe. So I want to make sure that that is very clear, that we're not requesting this education because the street design for Broadway or it, you know, is unsafe. We're requesting this to go above and beyond what is normally done when a new street project comes into a community. And I also want to stress that we're requesting this at this time, and that timing is very important because there's typically an adjustment period when travelers are adapting to the new pattern. So for example, on Greenkill Avenue, when that new street design came in, you know, I saw it myself, I experienced it myself, that people who were driving in from the south on 32 were a little bit confused about where they were supposed to go on the road. And some, you know, I heard stories of people just driving right behind and you know, standing behind a parked car that was parked on Greenkill in the new parking area, because that's where they were, the driver, that's where they were used to going. They were used to driving in that lane. So, and so I think that happened, you know, quite a bit in the beginning, but then after about 6 months, the community begins to adapt to the new traffic pattern. And, you know, ultimately there's a long-term reduction in crashes on the roadway with the new design. You know, that's the goal. So this campaign is would be specifically designed for this adjustment period so that we can really help the community understand the new infrastructure and utilize it properly. So why would we hire a marketing consultant? You know, obviously a marketing consultant can create these products. We want to do a high quality campaign so that we're able to get these safety messages out in a very flooded advertising environment. I mean, if you think about all the information that you receive on a daily basis through Facebook or wherever else you go, it's just, there's a lot of information. We want to make sure, and from what I read in some of the research, you want to make sure that people get the message at least 3 times, because that's when it actually will help produce the behavior or inspire the behavior change that we're looking for. City staff members do not have the time or the specialized expertise to produce these kinds of products. And we want to, the project needs to be completed professionally, quickly, and efficiently in order to be effective at, you know, at the right time. And also utilizing volunteers. And we have tried this in the past, facilitating, you know, a community design process would be very time consuming for city staff members that are already overburdened. So I did take some feedback from both city staff, and I think from what I heard from council members in the meetings, that we sort of reevaluated what this initial citywide campaign would be for. So instead of just only being for Broadway streetscape, we can also produce these messages for many of the new infrastructure. We realize, well, we actually have a completely new roundabout that people need to learn how to navigate. We'll have Broadway Grand intersection. We have the Hurley Ave, which there's been, you know, some confusion about the bike lanes on Hurley Ave. We have the Empire State Trail, and we have some new traffic lights that were removed in the city. So there are a lot of things that the city could be communicating about new infrastructure changes that have taken place, you know, within the last year and will be taking place this year. I also wanted to clarify that the initial campaign costs would be fixed, and we would not return to council for more funding for the initial campaign development. So the initial ask was just for this initial campaign. And then we could reuse the logos or the branding, the products for future street projects. We also, and I've actually already started some discussion with the governor's Traffic Safety Council, which they provide grants for traffic safety campaigns. You know, we've missed the grant period for this year, but we could, I think if the city were to invest in this and we were able to create campaign materials, then we could seek more funding to do more community outreach in the future. And we could also consider building it into design and construction contracts, which is not something that is normally done, but we could innovate and do that in the future for newer projects. Again, the purpose of this campaign would be to target the audiences of, essentially road users of all different types, elected officials and emergency service providers. The purpose would be to explain the changes in new traffic patterns in Kingston, explain how to properly use the new infrastructure, just in general, raise awareness of traffic laws that ensure the safety of everyone, and inspire behavior change that will ultimately prevent crashes. I'm going to just kind of speed through this because I already presented it last time. I know people are getting tired, but we would want to create some sort of logo and brand for an ongoing traffic safety campaign. Campaign, I guess I have a typo there, that we would be able to reuse for many years to come. So some other examples are Capital Coexist in Albany or Vision Zero in New York City. Those are examples of other cities that have created an ongoing campaign. We would be able to create a traffic safety homepage on our Engage Kingston website, where we also could maybe receive some comments from the community about traffic safety and, have some back and forth communication between the residents and the city regarding specifically traffic safety issues. Last time I played a radio spot from Australia. I can share this PowerPoint again, so folks want to play it themselves. But we can do radio spots during drive time that help people understand, how they should behave as a user of the road. I showed this video last time. We can produce videos that show people how to use the bicycle boxes that will be on Broadway. And they will be different than this video that I showed last time. The bicycle boxes are unique to Kingston, so they're a little bit different than, I haven't been able to find another video on YouTube or elsewhere that shows exactly how to use Kingston's bicycle boxes. We could also do some important message videos. So this video is a 30-second video that shows just the potential consequences of driving while using your cell phone. So we could do those kinds of videos. We can do ads on the buses, and actually we already have a collaboration with the Ulster County Transportation Council to put ads on the UCAT buses that are running through Kingston, and they will spend some of their own funding on that. However, we still need to provide the logos and the branding and the graphics for those bus wraps. And then again, social media ad spend would be part of what we would do. So I just wanted to clarify that marketing costs are highly variable. The original request, and I realize it might have been a little bit confusing because I said the original request was for a minimum of $35,000, but what I meant was it was the minimum amount we felt should be dedicated for an effective campaign. And the original, it was actually for a ceiling of $35,000. So the request was, we don't want to spend more than $35,000, but this is the minimum amount we think that for something that would be effective. We could spend more. It could be 50 or 75,000. It could even be more effective, but at least we thought 35,000 would be an appropriate amount. And that was based on conversations I had with marketing professionals in the community. So that was what we had originally requested. I did hear that the council would like to have an RFP produced to get real cost proposals. So I'm proposing now that we put out an RFP either tomorrow or the next day, and I do have an RFP nearly finished, or I have a draft that's nearly finished, and it would be a short period of time in order to meet the deadline for really creating an effective campaign. But we would put out the RFP, receive responses on June 1st, and then I would propose to hold a special finance meeting. I think this is the day after Memorial Day. And then I could come with RFP results and costs, and then the council could choose at that point. We wouldn't choose the consultant, but you would choose the amount that you would like to spend. And so this would be an updated timeline. We'd release the RFP tomorrow or the next day. We would get the RFP responses on June 1st, potentially get your approval on June 1st, select the consultant, and then so forth. They would develop the safety campaign through the early summer, and then begin it in August, and run that through November. And then in the future, the city staff would be able to reuse the logo and the branding and the graphics for new announcements, and we could seek funding, grant funding, or other sources of funding for future campaign runs, related to other street projects or other issues that come up. So that's it. That's all I have for my presentation. And I'm happy to entertain more questions.
So a crucial thing there you're saying would be to get the advertising underway before the Broadway is reopened, because that's scheduled for late September at this point, right?
Yeah. So, but upon reflection after the last meeting and speaking with others, we realized that, the roundabout is opening in September too, or it will be finished this summer. So, we thought there may be messages that would be related to how to navigate the roundabout as well. So yeah, that is really, for it to be effective, it really should be, the timing of the campaign should coincide with the opening of the new projects, because that's when this sort of transition or the adoption period begins for people.
Great, thank you. Questions for Kristen? Thank you for bringing that back in and clarifying. It's important, I think, to see that when we're talking about that $35,000, that's the ceiling, and that this is not just an open-ended project proposal here.
Well, and just to clarify, that was the ceiling that I recommended, but if we do the RFP, the cost may come in higher. We can always negotiate with the consultants and say, okay, well, you responded with a $75,000 project, but can we do just only this for $35,000? We can negotiate with them after, but then once we do the RFP, the council will get a better sense of what some of the real costs may be.
Okay.
Or what we can get for what.
Mm-hmm. All right, questions for Kristen? Tony Davis?
I know this is a long night, so I'm not gonna keep it long because you're going to what's the name back. I just feel there's other ways we could do this. We could utilize the Freeman that we already paid for. We can use the city website to educate people. We could make a flyer up, a map that you have already shown where the bike lanes is, and just put in some kind of informational piece of where people drive. to me, 35,000. And I mean, I'm glad you came back and said that it was, but I just feel that this is not going to be 35,000. It's going to come back and we're going to be requested to ask for more money to do this. I just don't see that 35,000 can get this all done. And then there's other things we didn't do this. I didn't see this happening when the roundabout was built out there in the, when you get off the thruway. I don't recall putting any money in for that. There's been other road projects that I haven't seen anything. And I also think that the public should be putting more input into it. I just to say 35,000 and you're going to have people that don't all not using this and they're going to say, we're paying another 35,000 to tell somebody how to drive. I'm this. And then you also stated 6 months of adaptation. There was less than 6 months for people to get used to Greenkill Avenue. And, it didn't take that long. It didn't take 6 months for people to adapt to how Hurley Avenue, what you have to do on Hurley Avenue. It was just a little education and saying some things, maybe putting some roadblocks up or barricades. But I'm still not sold on 35,000. That's just me. I can't speak for the rest of the people, but that's just me. And so I'm still not convinced of that we need to do this. I think it's other cheaper ways to do this, to educate the public about it. And that's just my opinion. Thank you.
So Tony, I'm wondering, would you be against putting out the RFP to see if we actually get a proposal that would come in at 35,000, or are you just thinking that's just too much, period? My initial thing is that 35,000 is not going to cost. It's not going to be 35,000. And then it's going to be, okay, we got RFP and it's going to be more, or it's going to come back and say, oh, well, we can't do this. And then we're going to have to fund up more money for this because we're already going to have started to spend something, this money. And then it's going to be like, okay, we can't just go halfway now. We got to figure it out. I don't know. I even like to know how much it costs. It probably did cost more to educate people on the trash cans, which was the whole citywide, which affected everybody. I just don't see that 35,000 is going to do this. And again, Don Tollerman had stated before that 35, that's just a start. And he's in this business. And let's just change something. I'm most positive that's what he stated last month, that's just a big initial beginning. In my gut feeling that this is going to come back and it's going to cost way more than 35,000 to educate. I just think we could put out a flyer and indicate what the map looks like, put it on there saying, this is where the bike lanes is, this is where the car lanes is, and that's it. And I don't think it's going to be that, all the trap or accidents that, people think it's going to be. And people are going to have to drive slower. They're going to have to educate themselves. But I'm already seeing that at the top of Broadway with all these configurations. People just had to take their time, navigate these things here. And I think that's going to be, once it's completed, all the way down Broadway. That's just me. So Kristen, to respond, then Don, then Steve Shabbat.
I just want to say that with $0, we can do some press releases, maybe a map, like you're suggesting. But, as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, that, the research that talked about the effectiveness of traffic safety campaigns specifically pointed out that campaigns will not be effective if they are not well executed. And so I think with $0, we will do a not well executed traffic safety campaign. It will not be well executed. I can tell you that right now, just based on the staff challenges and staff workloads. I mean, even trying to put this together with an RFP is a challenge with our workload. So that will not be well executed. So what I had originally proposed was $35,000 as a cap, and I did not make that clear. But I think with $35,000, we could do something that would be relatively well executed and would get some of the most important messages out. You know, and that was based on numbers that I got from marketing consultants. With more, we could do more, you know, as Dawn has said, but I do think that, you know, choosing zero is choosing to not educate people about the changes in the roadway. And I do think that there are potentially, you know, there's no way that I would be able to, nor the city would be able to know whether the campaign worked or not, or if we don't do the campaign, like, should we have done a campaign? But I do think that there's the potential for preventing injury or death.
Don Tollerman?
I'd like to ask Kevin Bryant a question if he's still here. It's about whether this, even if we spent 35,000, if an accident were to happen, would this protect us from a lawsuit saying that, claiming that the city did not inform people enough? With, you know, even as an insurance policy, is that line of thinking even, you know, relevant or clear? Because that would be a factor here. So
If we want to have that discussion, I think we'd have to go into attorney-client session.
all right, well then, if that's true, you know, I do believe that to do this properly, $35,000 is woefully short. You know, to do it properly, I think it's you know, should be double that. And but then to Tony's point, you know, okay, so if we do it properly, you know, and Kristen said, yes, we can get things done for 35,000. I just don't think it'll be nearly as we're not going to have the adequate reach and awareness that this deserves. So, you know, I'm really on the fence about it. You know, like if you do something, you do it right. But if you can't do it right, then why do it at all? So, you know, I'm on the fence about it, but I you know, perhaps, but Kristen, you need marching orders now, right? Whether to do this RFP or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can put out an RFP and we can get responses and see what happens. Then you could choose then.
You know, that could be helpful because then we can see what these consultants think they can do for earned media, meaning not paid ads, but getting people to be aware of things, you know, by having articles about them and other, you know, people just getting the word out without buying ads. So the consultant might have a whole plan for that, and we pay them, you know, 15,000, and we get a lot more. So maybe it is worth sending out the RFP and seeing what we get. You know, that can't hurt. Like you say, it sounds like you're ready to anyway.
Great. Steve Shabbat, then Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks, Kristen. It looks like you put a considerable amount of work into addressing our concerns. I appreciate that, and it seems like you did address most of them. But I guess like Don, I'm really kind of up in the air about this. And correct me if I'm wrong, the $35,000 we're suggesting, that's just for a consultant. So anything we want to do, we're adding on. I guess
that's not true, Steve. No, that's not true. That's some of the action items would be included in that.
We will get something. We'll get something for the 35 more than just a consultant.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. What I had estimated was I mean, there were essentially 7 tasks in the scope that I had developed, and I'm happy to share it with you via email, the draft of the RFP or the RFP if we put it out. But it was for 35,000. I thought we might be able to get a marketing plan, the logo and brand, some radio ads during drive time, potentially a video or 2, and some social media ad spend. So, essentially spending money on getting Facebook or other social media sites to show you traffic safety messages.
Yeah, okay.
Don
Thanks.
can speak more about what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would probably feel a little more comfortable if we did an RFP and get more of a sense of reality with this. I mean, we keep saying, we want to really do it the right way. I mean, is this going to be enough to do it the right way? Or, if we put an RFP out, we don't know what's going to come in. So, I mean, I don't want to start moving ahead and, start finding out this is going to cost us so much more than we think. I don't know, just my thoughts.
Michelle?
Hi, Kristen. Thank you. I know that you're really passionate about this, and I appreciate all your hard work on it. My concern is that there's like 2 issues here. Like, we're going to have a traffic safety campaign, right, to educate the public, but then we're also talking about branding and logos. And it just sounds like a lot of bells and whistles that cost a lot of money that we as a small city need to remember. We're still only a small city. We're not New York City. We're not Albany. We're, still only Kingston. And I think that there's a lot, I just don't see the need for branding and logos. I think that we can educate the public, but it doesn't need to be, just a lot of flash. So I just would be in favor of something that is just more focused on education and, traffic safety, and less of the flash, less logos, less branding. Thank you.
Yeah, Kristen.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in marketing. So, I mean, that is what I determined from conversations with marketing consultants. So I can't really speak to that. I do know that, traffic, I do know from what I looked at in the research that it is important to have a high quality and effective campaign. And I do think that branding can be part of that, but I would think that Dawn would be able to speak to that better than I could.
Well, we need a sense of the committee then. Do we want to move forward to the extent of asking Kristen to put out an RFP? Or if we think that that's not going to be, if that's not going to give us the information that we need to feel comfortable with this kind of campaign, do we want to just let the whole thing drop now? Don Tollerman.
I would like to have a conversation with the Corporation Council about it tomorrow. Oh, hi, Kevin.
Hello.
I'll repeat the question that I had about this, Kristen's proposal to do a educational program on signage for our Broadway street configuration and the roundabout possibly also. Is there an element here of protecting us from a lawsuit should any accident happen in the future and someone claims that, well, the city didn't communicate to us about the changes? If we spend anything to communicate these changes, would that would that act as some kind of insurance policy in the event of litigation? So at least it's defensible that, yes, we did try to communicate about the new traffic patterns.
So you're talking about signage from an educational standpoint as making residents informed as specifically about what?
Kristen, you want to answer that for Kevin? Muted.
Yeah, it would be not signage. It would be messaging and advertisements and radio ads and videos that would be teaching people how to use the new infrastructure and informing people about how to behave as users of the road system. So, targeted towards bicyclists, pedestrians, and vehicle drivers, and other non-motorized transportation users on how to, specifically operate in the road environment.
So you're asking me, Don, whether safety measures or the expense associated with the safety measures is a wise move from the standpoint of minimizing liability? Is that the question?
Correct, and giving us a strong argument, should we be subject to litigation if there's some kind of incident in the future?
Well, considering we're having this open discussion in public about that, and we clearly feel that there is an issue or a legitimate concern, for us not to do it at this point, when it's raised as a legitimate concern and we realize that certain actions need to be taken, I would think it would be a wise move. And I think knowing that there's a particular harm or risk that's out there, and as you continue to discuss this openly, you're acknowledging that there are certain additional steps that can be taken. I think for you not to do it at this point would be an unwise move.
Well,
And
Kristen,
so let's put it this way. Just from the standpoint of protecting our residents, knowing that there needs to be better communication and there's more that we can do, it makes sense to do it from that point. And yes, in fact, that's something that if in fact it got to the point where an issue was raised in court, then that would be, something to take into consideration relative to the city's efforts to make everyone aware. So there is no way in the world I would say it doesn't make sense.
so it's certainly worth getting an RFP out there, it would seem, and then we can decide what action to take after that.
Good.
Okay, so great. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate it. Let's just take a straw poll. Who would like to see an RFP before the next council meeting? So, and who would not like to see it? Well, I'm getting 4 in favor. So I think that, Kristen, if you can go ahead and put out an RFP and see what we can get. Is that all right?
Sure, and I just want to note that in the RFP, I will put, in sort of a response to some of Michelle's concerns, that I will put language, actually this was suggested by Brian Slack in a meeting about this earlier, that the responders they don't have to respond specifically to our suggested scope. They can propose their own innovative way to address the issue. And so perhaps there will be, some other ideas that consultants may give us. So just want to share that as well.
Oops, thank you. All right, and so then I'll be in touch with President Shaw to see about arranging a meeting before caucus. So we'll have a
Now we
long-
got a meeting before caucus.
Yeah.
So we have a meeting already before caucus,
Well, we know we've got caucus.
and then we got common council on the same day.
Right. I think that's the choice we made. I mean, the other thing is, is there any way, Kristen, to put this off till the next, till the July council meeting?
You stated no, that is time sensitive, that it has.
Yeah, I think it, if I think it would be very difficult to be able to award from the time that we make the award, it's still going to be about 2 weeks before we can get into contract, negotiate the scope, negotiate the price. And then we'd be looking at mid-July for them to start the work, when we'd really want the messaging to start getting out in August. It's just too short of a time frame.
Okay.
And also we will have CFAs due at the end of July this year. So it's going to be a nutty time for my office.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we're done with that one. Yes. Last thing on the agenda. Thank you, Kristen, for all that. We appreciate all the work that you put into it.
Okay, thank you.
The last thing is an update on the proposal with Acre about a tax structure in exchange for rent caps at the facility they recently bought. And so this is just an update. We've been trying to negotiate that particular deal. So Dan Baker, is there anything that you want to tell us substantive?
Yeah. Good evening, council, committee. I've had some, communication with, Alderman Tollerman, Alderman Scott Childress about some of their concerns with regard to the proposal that was put forward. And I think those are definitely legitimate concerns. And I think there was some ideas about how to make the proposal stronger that need to be conveyed back to, the applicant, the developer of the proposed affordable housing initiative. Those include reducing the AMIs to lower levels and increasing the percentages of those, along with some type of caps on rent increases, whether they be annually, people transferring into a renovated apartment, or whether that be new people coming in. What does that structure look like? And then also, what would call for an increase above or no increase at all on a current year's tax responsibility? Is there some mechanism we can pin against where when the developer is seeing some good times, that the city also would receive some increases in payments? And then maybe if there's some large dip in AMI or a large dip in the economy, and that developer is taking on the burden of affordable housing without any increases or potentially decreases, is there a variable factor that we can turn to support that developer in their effort to provide affordable housing? So I think some of those are some of those ideas that I'm going to bring back to Acre and see their response. I've heard those from concerns from Alderman Scott Childress and Don Tollerman. I have yet to hear back from any other council members. I'd be happy to listen to those concerns and take those comments, questions, concerns back to Acre. And I think that's, an important part of the process of seeing if we can develop something that would be beneficial to the city in supporting affordable housing. I don't have to tell you, but every day as we go through this current environment in real estate in the city of Kingston, it's getting harder and harder to find affordable units. And I encourage the council to be engaged in this process to see if we can somehow, for the long term, secure 266 units into the affordable bracket. It would be a huge win for the city and its fight for affordability in the city of Kingston.
Great, thank you, Dan. Michelle Hirsch.
Hi, Dan. Thank you. I just would like to say that I think that I would like to know specifically when they're spreading out the AMI across apartments, like they were giving us a number of apartments, so many at 70%, so many apartments at 80%. I would like to see the lowest AMI at the 3-bedroom apartments. That would really benefit a family in Kingston. I would not like to see the lowest AMI going towards the studio apartments.
Right. I will bring that back to them, and maybe there could be some language in that agreement that talks about that. Finding about how many there are, and like the Acre had said, this is basically a math problem. They're looking to be able to support affordability, and there's going to be a breaking point for them where it doesn't make sense for them anymore. And we want to see if we can find that spot where there's things that we want and what works for them too. So I will definitely bring that back. That's a great point. We'll see what they have to say.
Thanks, Dan.
Great. So we encourage everybody else, I know it's late, so any other members of the council who've got questions or suggestions for Dan as we go through this process, please feel free to get in touch with him. He's available.
Yeah. And one last point, I had heard some comments, people, commenting that from, real estate people out there in the community that this would, somehow greatly increase, the value of this property, and that somehow that these developers would have, you'd be flipping this property. We have to remember we're twofold here. We're a pilot and we're a regulatory agreement. And this would be new for the city. A regulatory agreement would be with the city of Kingston. And in that regulatory agreement, we would have authority in regard to the sale of that property. So that's one interest, in when you're limiting the amount of potential buyers and you have a say over that sale of that property, that's not increasing a potential flip of this property. It's more or less really locking these them into a long-term use of this property. And I can share some language with you that talks about that. So, kind of want to quell those concerns that this is a quick in and out, and I don't foresee that. I don't necessarily believe that. And there's lots of things in a private housing finance law 577 regulatory agreement and pilot structure that would give the city a lot of say if and when that would come to rise. So I would think that we would be in a very strong position to continue to secure affordability for the city, and whether it be in the transaction or in the future with regard to this property.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Michelle Hirsch, second. Anybody? Everybody. All right. Thank you for all the work you've put in tonight. I know it was a long one. We got a lot done, a lot of important discussions, and I appreciate your attention throughout the whole meeting. So that's it for tonight. We're closing up here at 9:48. Take care, everybody. Be well.